And we are the Scanner Guys. We're live this evening from coast to coast. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And this evening we have a great show planned. This was something that was suggested by our viewers, wanted to have an overview of some of the digital formats that are out there. So we're going to tell you a little bit more about that. We're both sporting our Scanner Guys t-shirts right here. So both have them on.
Did you get your shirts, people? I hope so. I see a couple of our listeners already have.
Yes.
Got two of them.
Well, that is awesome. So we were looking forward to this. They came right on schedule, which is great.
I got mine Thursday of last week, so that was
and I got mine on Monday. It's funny because they're supposed to be out of Virginia, which is just north of me. And unless they print them somewhere else, maybe that's where they're. Who knows? They may have a centrally located location where they print them, and then their corporate office is in Virginia. Who knows?
Yeah, I should have looked at the mail label. I just I don't know where it came from, but it arrived. Like I said, it arrived on Thursday, and I didn't order it right away. So I was a weekend before I actually ordered it. It still came lickety split. So.
Yeah, and I've got I got another shirt for my dad. I have to get that over to you. I'm sure he's watching this evening. So let's. Hey, how's it going? I haven't, like with all this COVID stuff, I haven't been able to hang out with him. So hopefully, I'll be able to do that at some point. So tonight's topic, let's take a look at that again. That's an overview of digital formats there. As always, the Scanner Guys are brought to you by Scanner Master. So let's dive into this. So thank you so much to everyone that's ordered a t-shirt. And did you get your shirt? Just let us know in the comments if you got your shirt, and we would love to know and how you like it. I mean, I feel like it came out pretty good. It's in our in our Scanner Master green, and then I'm actually wearing, I think I don't think I ordered the one that's in the slideshow color. The one
that one's almost a black. Yours is a little bit darker gray than mine.
Yeah, we did several different colors, and
and Bob says we need a Scanner Guys baseball hat. You betcha. That might be our next swag we do.
Yeah, that'd be some cool swag for everybody.
Yep. So we'll look into doing the hats. That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. All right, so we'll continue on here, and our first guest will be with us next week. Phil from the Scanner School will join us Wednesday, August the 24th. Not the 24th, but the 12th. At 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, live right here on the Scanner Guys. So we'll talk to Phil. He may actually stick around for the romper room.
Cool.
Romper room section of the show. So we'll definitely excited about having our first guest.
That's right. Yeah, that'd be fun. It's the first time we've ever had a three people on. That did not come out the way I intended. But the first time we'll have three people on.
Yes, three people we will have on the show, and we're going to talk about scanners.
Yes.
Oh, big news right here from Scanner Master. Da, da, da.
We've been waiting for these for a long time. They are here. Get them while they're hot. They showed up. We have a whole boatload of SDS 100s and 200s. And we are excited about that because I get calls 5 times a day. I got calls this morning about the SDS 100s. And then at lunchtime, they showed up. And I'm like, oh, they're here.
I'm sure the phones lit up as well.
Yeah, we got a bunch of calls after that, and all of a sudden, I got the email, and then all of a sudden there were 4 lines lit up on the phone. So it's like, I know what happened. I'm not the only one that got the email.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and we got a whole lot of them. So we should have them in stock for quite a while. The last time we got them restocked, they went out. They were gone. The SDS 100s, anyway, were gone within 24 hours. This time we got a bunch more of them, so we should have them for a while. Hopefully everybody who wants one can get one. You still there? Am I talking to myself? Looks like Jonathan might have froze.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You stopped. You kind of stopped there. I was talking to myself. So hopefully that part of it is okay again. So like I say, if you were looking for an SDS radio, we got them now. They are live on our webpage. You can go ahead and order them, or give me a call tomorrow, and I'll take your order over the phone.
Yeah, which is awesome. I mean, we're looking forward to selling those SDSs, and it should be a good time.
Yeah. So Don asked if we have the SDS 200E, which is I don't know if the E stands for export or European, because they also sell it in Australia, which is nowhere near Europe. So we do not have those. We only have the version that was made for the U.S. and Canada. Mm-hmm. So while most of everything is going to be the same, there might be some frequency range differences and such. I'm not sure what the difference is between them. Obviously, for the ones that are sold away from the North American market, you'll have a different power adapter or mains adapter if you're in England. But physically, I think the radio is pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, that's really really cool.
Yep. And the SDS 100, of course, does come with the USB power adapter, so you can charge the battery. And the other question we get all the time is the SDS 100s do come with the Kardashian battery.
Yeah, so they have the bigger rear.
Yes. And we have the small battery, and we had them in stock yesterday when I looked. Let's see if we still have the small batteries for the SDS 100s. That's been a really popular accessory, and we are the only ones that have those small batteries that you can buy. And we do have them in stock. And so if you're looking for a small battery for your SDS 100, we got them, and we are the only ones that have them.
Yeah, we are totally the only ones that have it. And you know, I mean, that's the cool thing about the some people actually prefer the smaller rear versus the larger rear.
Yeah, you're not going to get the battery life with the smaller battery that you will with the larger one. But if you're willing to forego the extra battery life to get a more slimline product and object in your pocket, then yeah, you can get the small battery. If you're using it in a case, you might need to put a little piece of styrofoam or something in the back of the case to keep the radio from wobbling in the back of the case if you're using the small battery. If you have the large battery, it'll fit in our cases perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, I've used, I've seen some customers use, like sometimes they get the styrofoam or something like that shipped to them. Yep. And they use that and it works great.
Yeah.
Just being able to, add a little bit of filler to that case.
Yeah. And like I said, it just keeps it from rattling around in there and keeps it nice and secure. So, again, if you're looking for an SDS radio or an SDS 100 battery, we've got them.
And they are popular, scanners. I mean, right now, they're probably one of the top selling scanners right now for Scanner Master. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the scanners have been out of stock because of the assembly line was interrupted because of COVID. And now finally things are starting to ramp up a little bit. I know you said that we have the 125 AT, which is a personal favorite of you and I, that's finally back in stock. So definitely order these radios while you can. I don't know when there'll be another gap, or hopefully there won't be any more gaps, but you never know.
Yeah. Well, like I say, since it was kind of a three-pronged thing. When the COVID thing hit, there was a disruption in the supply line. Couple that with a huge demand for all types of scanners because people are at home. They want something to do. They want something to listen to. And then a couple months after that is when the civil unrest started. and in a lot of the cities. And now people want to be able to listen to the police and listen to what's going on. And so we've had a huge increase in demand for that as well. So all the digital scanners were very difficult to come by, and now at least the SDSs are back in stock. I don't know when we're going to get more of the 436s. We do have the 536s available, but the Home Patrols, the 996, 325, and the 436s are still out, and those are difficult to come by.
That's for sure. So let's continue on with the slideshow here. Good evening, everyone. If you're just joining us, we're the Scanner Guys, and we're live, and we're talking about digital formats. So we're going to have a little bit of an overview of what it all means, these various digital formats, what scanners are capable of monitoring those types of systems, and so on. So it's going to be an interesting show. So if you're just diving into digital, hopefully this will be a huge help for you. So let's continue on with the slideshow here. The Uniden Bearcat radios are going to be the most accommodating for all these digital formats. Of course, your whistlers will operate on some of these digital formats, but Uniden has got the whole variety of them covered. And you can see some of the radios we just talked about, the SDS 100 and 200, which are the cream of the crop of the digital radios, and of course the 436 and the 536. Digital formats that can be heard on the scanners, or these particular scanners, is APCO P25, DMR Turbo, NXDN, or otherwise known as NextEdge, and then ProVoice, which is an older digital format that's really no longer being used in new systems.
Yeah, we're going to cover that a little bit later on in the slideshow. But yeah, ProVoice is obsolete. So if they're not ProVoice now, they won't be in the future.
That's for sure.
So it looks like YouTube is acting up a little bit. So if you're on YouTube tonight, some people are getting it just fine, and other people are having some issues. But it's not.
Yeah, I saw that.
It must be YouTube.
What I'm going to recommend to people out there, I just checked on my phone. It seems to be working fine. Just refresh your browser, your YouTube browser, and more than likely it should pop back up.
Yeah. Usually it's Facebook that has the problem, but today it's YouTube.
So if you're watching us on YouTube, you could switch over to the Scanner Master Facebook page. We're actually simulcasting. And it's nothing on our end. I mean, everything. Yeah. I mean, I've got no errors over here. Everything's streaming okay.
Yeah, and I've got it on the other screen here, and it seems to be working just fine for me. So it might be a regional thing with YouTube. So
yeah,
they have multiple servers all over the country. So
yep. So definitely try refreshing your browser. I mean, everything looks like it's working fine on this end.
Those that are having problems might be on the East Coast, where they're having some hurricane issues. Maybe
could be. Very well, could be.
Yep. So, all righty, let's move on, my friend.
All right, so what's digital? It's a binary code, as you can see on the screen. Rich, tell us a little bit about this slide.
All right, digital is basically just ones and zeros. It's a way of transmitting data, pictures, or voice, but instead of sending analog sound waves to modulate a signal, it modulates the radio signal with ones and zeros. So your transmitter will then take that audio, convert it to a digital format, ones and zeros, and then send it over the radio. And then the receiver will do the same thing, except backwards. It'll take that digital signal and then convert that back to the audio or picture or text that was sent originally. It makes things much more efficient in sending the data. You can also include other things like encode text along with the voice. You can make very easy encryption, encrypt signals much easier than it does with analog. And it basically makes things a lot more efficient.
Yeah. So, I mean, digital, it's binary code. It's really cool that, it is zeros and ones being transmitted in the air versus an analog signal. So it's I mean, it's crazy the amount of things that have changed over the years. I guess my guests got tired of scanner talk. Watson was joining us this evening, and I think he was crying at the door. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, Rich, we've lived through a lot of changes in communication. We went from analog to trunking, and then to digital. I mean, both of us, been in this hobby long enough to be able to see the transition of types of communications.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I lived up. I was first got into it with crystal scanners and wideband stuff when the channels were only 30 kilohertz apart, and then several phases of narrow banding, the trunking. The opening up of UHF and 800. When I was a kid, we didn't even have T-band or anything above 470, and then they add 800, then they add 700, and everything. So it's just it's a transition from lower tech to higher tech, and they find more efficient ways of doing stuff, and it's just another step.
Yeah, so definitely, it's cool to be able to see all that stuff. So let me go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about the big digital format. This is probably, what would you say, the most popular digital format out of all of them?
For public safety, it's P25 by far. Probably, I don't know, 75, 80% of digital public safety traffic is P25. The big area-wide and statewide systems like Starcom, Viper, Palmetto, the Michigan, the Minnesota systems, those are all P25. They're huge.
There's so many too, and they're huge, and a lot of them have simulcasts. I mean, it's crazy the amount of systems.
They'll have hundreds of sites and thousands of talk groups and tens and 30,000, 40,000 users. So on some of these big wide area systems, or it might be a little small town with 2 or 3 channels and a dozen radios. So you can have tiny little systems, you can have humongous systems, and they're all using the same technology, which is pretty much the same from multiple vendors, even though there might be some minor differences. It's as far as the scanner user is concerned, it's P25.
And that's for sure. And let's kind of dive into this slide a little bit. So we a lot of us have witnessed this. P25 phase 1 is one voice path, and then P25 phase 2 has 2. What does that all mean in layman's terms for some of our viewers?
Well, basically, the older P25 phase 1, it's just every time somebody talks, it uses a frequency. On phase 2, they split that up into chunks, and they're called time slots because you get a portion of a time slot for a portion of a second for your conversation and a portion for my conversation, and we're talking 2 totally different people, and it's sharing the same frequency. So you got 2 different paths going in each direction on one frequency, 2 totally separate conversations happening, but they're sharing the same frequency. So that instantly makes the system twice as efficient, or you can fit twice as many activities on a system. So on a 5-channel P25 system in a phase 1, you can have 4 voice paths because one's a control channel. On a phase 2, now you can have 8 voice paths because each channel is now chopped up into 2 sections, and you can actually squeeze that much more. You can double your capacity.
Which is totally awesome, to think of. Some of the public safety bands are becoming, very difficult to be able to secure these frequencies. So where, like you said, the older system, 5 channels, 1 being the control channel, you've just blown that open, and now you're able to carry more traffic on that smaller system.
Right. And if you've got a phase 2 scanner, you can listen to both phase 1 and phase 2 traffic. So that's a question we get a lot too, is if I buy phase 2, but they're also using phase 1 the next county over, can I still listen to that? Yeah. So you got a phase 2 scanner, it'll work on both.
And then NXDN can use very narrow bandwidth to provide a spectrum efficiency, but single voice path per frequency. You can squeeze more into channels into that same spectrum throughout.
Yeah. So basically what that means is a radio channel on P25 is this wide. On NXDN, you can cut that in half. Now it's only this wide. So you have 2 NXDN channels within that same amount of spectrum. So even though it's only 1 voice path per frequency, you can fit 2 frequencies in the same amount of space as a single channel on a P25. And that should be voice path. That was my fault that was a typo. But yeah, you have 1 voice path per frequency. But
I see.
Yeah.
I read it.
But you can fit more frequencies. It's like having a garden hose, and you have big raindrops or big water drops for P25 and smaller drops for NXDN.
I guess I had my Ron Burgundy moment. I read anything off the screen, and I did it right there. So
that's why you don't see us below the waist, because we're also...
Have you seen Anchorman, Ron Burgundy?
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah. I'm not going to repeat what he said off the teleprompter. So ProVoice is no longer sold or supported to the end user soon. It was sold as a system. So there's several of these systems still alive and kicking. I believe the MBTA in Boston will continue using the system until they run it into the ground. They're not going to upgrade that system. They literally, I don't know why. The funny thing about it is before they went to the ProVoice system, it was already dated as it is. Yeah. I was just very surprised that they went to that system. I mean, it's a phenomenal system. It works really well for them. I mean, for the MBTA, it's for the subway and tunnel ops. The subway and bus ops. But I got ahead of myself. Using the system inside tunnels and then above ground for the bus system. So it's very versatile. It's phenomenal reception. I mean, I've monitored that system on several occasions, and it works really well for them.
Yeah, it's a decent technology, just like EDX trunking was a decent technology. It's just that they never had the penetration that Motorola had, and Motorola sold a whole lot more systems than GE did with the original EDX, and then with the ProVoice. So they kind of lost the battle of numbers, and then APCO got into the game and pointed everybody towards P25 and a single technology, which allows then if you have a P25 system, you can buy radios from this guy, from that guy, or from the other guy. So everybody's using the same type of technology, which has a lot of benefits. And then DMR is also a TDMA system, very similar to P25 in that it uses time slots on a single frequency, so you can get more on one channel. EDX is all basically phase 1, if you want to call it that. It's 1 voice path per frequency.
Very interesting. I mean, that's an overview of the differences in between the formats. We'll keep diving into this. We're going to take a hard dive now at the phase 2 P25, developed by and for APCO. P25 is not just a trunking protocol. No, it isn't. I mean, there's a lot of public safety agencies using it conventionally.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can use it. I mean, the entire standard includes trunking, the trunking control data and how that technology works, as well as the voice audio. So you can use it in both a voice, in a conventional and a trunking mode.
And then the baud rate is 9600, and that's for all P25 digital voice.
Right.
The other cool thing, it also supports data for text and identification, as well as over-the-air programming, which is going to be a huge help to a lot of our radio techs that are out there. When they got to do something major to the system on the fly and they need to do it relatively quickly, just to be able to do that over the air.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not used as often as I thought it would be, but it does work. And you can send short messages back and forth. And a lot of it just might be just status messages. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the old MODAT system, where there was a row of buttons that you would have attached to your radio. And like for the fire department would use it when they're responding to a call, they'd press a button saying en route, and then another button when they arrive, and it would send data over a radio channel. P25 supports that same type of stuff, and it's just embedded in the control data, so you don't have to listen to those data bursts on the radio.
That's for sure. And as we covered this already, most popular trunking format for public safety, most large-scale trunking systems around the United States and Canada are P25. And as we mentioned earlier, all current scanners made that are digital radios for Uniden and Whistler all support P25 Phase 1. And then, the newer radios support P25 Phase 1 and 2. If you have a radio that supports Phase 2, it'll also support Phase 1.
Right.
The thing that kind of breaks my heart is the Whistler 1040 and the 1065. I really wish those radios would support Phase 2. I really think, we would sell a lot more of those if they did an update on those, or not an update, but came out with a newer version of those two radios that supports Phase 1 and Phase 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it's Whistler's only conventional non-zip code type scanners these days that do digital, and they're very popular scanners. I mean, people love them, but unfortunately, they're Phase 1 only.
Yeah, they're simple to program for the most part. They're object. Everything's programmed as an object, and it can be shared on multiple scan lists. I mean, it's one of the radios that's a little bit easier to field program because the menu drives down. When you're in the menu mode, you're going to fill in the blanks type of thing. With the Uniden radio, it's an onion, and you're peeling back layers. You're creating a system, you're creating a group, and you're going deeper and deeper into a menu where the Whistler radios once was the GRE radios, it was a driving down menu, which is pretty neat. Yeah. I mean, I found, for field programming, it was easy as long as you made sure you did everything correct. Make sure when you do field program those radios, you assign them to a scan list, because if it floats, what'll happen the next time you boot up your radio, you'll have that dreaded heap error.
Yeah. Every talk group in that radio has to be assigned to a trunk system. If you don't do that, you're going to get that heap error. And the only way to get rid of a heap error is to erase the radio and start over.
All over again. And especially if you're, I've had a few people that's all they program their radio is by keypad. Yep. And they'll be in a rush and they'll program it in and they won't assign it to a scan list or a talk group to a trunk system. And lo and behold, you go reboot that radio and it says, where does this go to? I don't know, but I'm going to create an error for it.
I had a guy call me a couple of weeks ago who said, I just spent the entire weekend programming my scanner, and I was just getting ready to hook it up to the computer to back it up because he's a hand programmer, and he was going to back it up on the computer. And he said, well, I want to make sure it works. He turned it on, and 30 seconds later, he got that heap error, and everything was gone. And it was just like, I felt so bad for the guy.
Yeah, heap errors are not good. And then how could we not? I mean, on this slide, we mentioned some classic digital scanners on the Uniden camp, the BC 785D and the BC 250D. I mean, classic digital scanners from Uniden.
Yeah, but they're not going to work on the current P25 systems because they don't support 9600. And then you've got some of the older versions like the Pro 96 and 2096, and then the Uniden 796 and 296. They don't support 700 megahertz. They'll work on a phase 1 system as long as it's on 800, but if they're on 700, it won't work on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing thing here. So let's continue on with our slideshow presentation. So we're continuing on. There's 2 slides for P25. So there's a lot to talk about with this. Older digital systems. Who remembers P16? Yeah, me too. Allowed a mix of P25 and analog voice. Data channels are Motorola, and they're a 3600 baud rate format. So, early days, right?
Yeah, well, remember the old Indiana and system, the old Indiana system, and one of the Carolinas had their statewide system was 3600 baud, and you had a mixture of analog and digital. So if you've got a Motorola or a P25 system that also supports analog, it's actually a P16 system, and it has the older 3600 baud data channel.
Yeah, I mean that was quite interesting. I believe Mass State Police trunk system. I believe the current one that they're on and they're moving to a different system did have some support for some digital channels, but they never used it.
Yeah, and there were a lot of systems towards the end of the Motorola trunking systems when they were still selling them. Most of the newer ones were P16 because the controller hardware supported both analog and digital. Very rarely were they ever called P16. They were just the newer versions of the Motorola Type 2. Type 2, not Phase 2, but Type 2.
Type 2.
And most of the newer systems of that, or the later systems of that, were actually P16 because they supported both analog and digital, even though many of them only used analog.
Yeah, I mean, certainly some cool stuff there. Most of these have been converted, as we kind of hinted, P25, and there are some that are still operating, believe it or not.
Yeah, well, the Mass State Police, the old system is P16, the new one is P25.
Yeah, and I mean that's really cool. I remember Motorola Phase 1, and then Motorola Phase not Phase 1, Type 1 and Type 2.
And then there was Type 2i, and
there's variations of it.
Oh yeah, it got really confusing there. And try to program a fleet map. Thank your maker if you ever had to program a fleet map and try to figure out what a fleet map was. It's basically trunk tracking with crystals is what it was very similar.
Oh God.
To. Yeah.
I remember the craziness when you got into, when they got into trunking, and then some of the radios didn't support, that particular band. So you would have to do, it was just, I mean, we're spoiled now. I mean, for the most part, I mean, Uniden and Whistler kind of taken all that out of, all that pain in the butt work that we were doing, way back in the beginning, and made it easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, it's a lot easier now than it was before. So it may seem more complicated just because the radios can do a lot more, but the end user it's a lot easier, a lot less work involved.
Yeah, Joe said good riddance to those fleet maps. We agree with you right there. I mean, fleet maps were a pain in the butt. Look at this here. Here's another comment. Do you remember these systems?
Yeah, VSLAP. Yeah, there were some digital modes that were very similar to P25. Motorola Astro is the Motorola trade name for some of its digital products. And they were early implementations of a very similar technology to P25, but it wasn't quite P25. So it may or may not work on a P25 radio if you had one of those. I think Cleveland and Memphis had those Astro systems that weren't quite P25, and they may or may not have worked on scanners at the time. The VSLEP was a digital mode, and you can get encryption or not encrypted. It was just kind of a pain.
Yeah, oh, man.
Yeah, I'm glad they standardized it. That's the nice thing about standardization is now you don't have to have all these wonky different systems out there.
And this I've tried. The next bullet point with P25 conventional, programming it is a single channel trunk system. That is cool. Yeah. I like that because you could see the vehicle ID numbers. If you were listening to like a police department, sometimes you'll be able to see the unit IDs. I thought that was super, super cool to be able to do that.
If you're in the Chicago area, Chicago Fire is using P25 conventional, but if you program it as a single channel, single frequency trunked P25 system, you'll get those talk group IDs or radio IDs, which is really, really cool. I mean, you can program it as a conventional channel and listen to it all you want, but if you want to see the radio IDs, which is really cool, program it as a single channel trunked.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Do you remember OpenSky? That was a debacle.
Well, actually, yeah.
For some
installations, on the East were debacle, but there were a couple of installations in the Midwest which actually worked pretty well. I had a friend of mine who worked in Aurora and with Illinois, which is suburban Chicago, and they have an OpenSky system, and it works. The voice quality is pretty good, comparable to P25. And having used a P25 system and listened to OpenSky, I really couldn't tell the difference. And there were a lot of kind of neat things, but it never went over very well. And the implementation in New York and Pennsylvania was just a debacle from day one. So, yeah, we're trying to forget OpenSky.
I don't know. Why couldn't they do that right on this coast?
I think it was the scale of the installation. The ones that worked, Milwaukee, Naperville, and Aurora, are much smaller cities. I mean, Milwaukee's got, 700,000 people, and the Aurora Naperville system is probably about half of that, and a much smaller scale. But when you try to build a big, wide area system that covers the state of New York or the state of Pennsylvania and all the rest of that, it's just a disaster.
Yeah.
So, and then New York, I don't think they ever quite got off the ground.
Yeah, I think Carmen mentioned, thankfully New York opted out. I mean, Pennsylvania, all I've heard was, I even spoke to, I believe, some people, a trooper out there, and he said the system was horrific. Yeah. And this is coming from the user, the person using the system, and they said it was horrific. And then, unfortunately, we weren't able to monitor it to see how horrific it was.
Well, my buddy Bob used to work out in that area, and he just put on the notes there.
I'll post it right now.
Yeah. So somebody worked in Naperville, which was next door to where he was. And when they went to OpenSky, there were so many dead areas that it rarely worked inside of buildings. And that's a coverage issue. It's not so much a difference with the technology. It's a coverage area issue with the where the towers are placed and such. So if you had a very similar P25 system, with the same towers and such, you probably would have similar coverage. It's more in-building coverage is more based on the frequency and location than on the type of digital. But every system is going to have issues. And there just was never enough OpenSky systems out there for them to work out the bugs.
Yeah, it looks like they tested that in one county. Oh my God! So we're kind of raining on the P25 parade. OpenSky could have, is really taken over the slide here. Let's dive back in to the P25 aspect of it. Oh yeah, we've got people, climbing on board about the.
Why scanner people don't like OpenSky is because we can't listen to it.
That's one of the biggest things. It could be the best system out there.
Yeah,
we can't hear it's the worst.
So it sucks. Yeah. And that's one of the big selling points is you don't have to pay extra for encryption because you can't listen to it. So all right, back to the slide. Intellirepeaters and IntelliSites.
Yes. What is that all about, Rich?
All right. So often they are used for fill-in sites for an area where you need better coverage, but putting in a complete full P25 site is not cost effective. So where I'm from, the county had a big wide area P25 system. They had a north system and a south system, and they had a bunch of IntelliSites. And they had IntelliSite at the courthouses, and maybe the county jail and stuff. So where there's less activity, but you still need to fill it in, but they don't want to spend all the money for a big site. So they may have one or two channels, and even on a single channel, it's basically a data channel all the time until there's a voice call to go out. And then that voice, the data channel converts to a voice channel automatically. And then once the conversation's done, it reverts back to data. So on our county system, we had 2-channel IntelliSites, and all the voice went on one channel. And then if you had a second conversation on the same site, then the data channel would revert to voice. The conversation was over, it would go back to data. So as far as the scanner listener is concerned, it's programmed as any other P25 site, but don't be surprised if that data channel reverts the voice for a while.
Wow. I mean, that's super cool. I mean, technology is just came a long way.
And the EDX system had the same, had a very similar thing. And it was like called single, I don't remember the exact terminology, but it was like single frequency trunking or something like that, where you would have a trunking site with the one channel in it, and it would go from data to voice as necessary. Oh, we're not keeping you up, are we?
No, it's just been a long week. Sorry. And then any current digital radio will do phase 1, and most can do phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's been one of those weeks.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, so we're getting into the DMR and turbo.
Mm-hmm.
Sold by several companies. The biggest, of course, is Motorola. And this Motorola calls it Mobo Turbo, trying to get their name on the branding of this digital system. Right. And that adds some features that are separate from other sellers. And of course, this is the format that's popular for those shopping malls, for hospitals, college campuses. I believe the University of Vermont, where my daughter goes to school, is using DMR. So, they're one of those colleges that are using it. Occasionally used by public safety and government. You know why? Because it's cheaper. It's cheaper than P25.
Yep. You can buy before I retired, our public works department had an analog UHF repeater system, and the portables were starting getting old, and they were looking to replace their portables. It was cheaper for us to buy Motorola Turbo portables and use those in the analog mode than it was to buy analog portable radios to replace the current fleet. So that's what they did. They ended up buying a bunch of Motorola Turbo programmed in the analog mode.
Wow. And ham radio operators have really embraced DMR. And this is a really cool thing. Rich, tell us a little bit more about the DMR for the ham radio operators.
So there are a couple really big wide area ham radio systems that link different repeaters across the country, or across the world for that matter, through the internet, and they link these repeaters. So here I am in suburban Phoenix. I can talk to you in North Carolina by DMR. By me going through my local repeater, it goes across the internet, and then it connects to the local repeater in your neighborhood, and then you and I could talk back and forth on DMR. And it's basically trunking, networked trunking sites, and those talk groups are, and you have talk groups and everything just like a regular trunking system. It's just that they're on ham radio frequencies, and they are single site repeaters that are linked across the internet.
I mean, that is really cool. I mean, it's nice that the hobbyist is using a digital format such as DMR. And a lot of,
it's probably the biggest thing in ham radio these days.
And a lot of Uniden radios can handle DMR and turbo with an upgrade. There's a list of radios right there on your screen: the 325P2, the 996P2, the 436, the 536, and who could forget the SDS 100 and 200. By the way, if you joined the broadcast late, they are back in stock at Scanner Master. So definitely order them up. Make those phones ring tomorrow, and order your SDS 100 and 200 from Scanner Master. Unfortunately, for the Home Patrol 2, is not available in DMR or turbo. As for Whistler, TRX 1 and 2 come with DMR with its current firmware.
Yeah. And if you've got an older Whistler scanner, like a 1080 or one of these others listed here, you can get DMR with those with the proper firmware. And then if you've got an even older scanner like the Pro 668 and the Pro 18 and the PSR 800, you can send those to Whistler and they will update it from that to basically a WS 1080, and then it will do DMR. So if you go to Whistler's website, just look for the legacy upgrade and you can send it. It's like $69.95 and it's worth it.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. I mean, you spent a great deal of money on this radio, and you just want to have that capability to use digital. That digital portion of the radio. Certainly take advantage of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and if you take a look at Railfan 51's comment, we can talk about that for a minute here.
Sure.
He says it'd be great if Uniden can actually make a scanner update that's free. To do the NXDN, DMR, and ProVoice, just like Whistler does. Though there's a reason why you have to pay for the updates on the Uniden scanners versus the Whistler scanners. Uniden licenses the trunking protocol and allows you to properly trunk track those systems. On the Whistler, it has the codec, which means you can listen to the voice, and it doesn't necessarily follow the trunking properly or as efficiently or as good as the Uniden. So the Uniden provides much better trunking following on these systems. Whistler gets you the protocol itself for free.
Yeah, I just the thing is they're trying to keep down the overall cost of that.
All right. And if you don't need it, then you don't have to pay for it.
And the other thing too is, I'm sure a follow-up question will be, I have already purchased this for one radio. Why do I need to purchase it for another radio? I mean, the thing is I believe Uniden probably pays royalties to each one of these each one of the radios that are out there that have it. Correct?
Yeah, every radio that Uniden sells with the DMR or the NXDN or the ProVoice protocol, they have to pay a license fee to whoever it is, whatever company it is that owns that patent. So if they sell, let's say they sell 10,000 SDS 100s and they include DMR, they're going to have to pay that license fee for every one of those radios, and that means the radio is going to cost that much more. If you don't need DMR, then you can pay a little bit less for the radio. The Uniden doesn't have to pay the license fee on it, and if you want DMR, you can have it added. On Whistler, if they are paying a license fee for the voice codec, it's probably low enough where they can eat the expense, or they're not paying a license fee at all. That part I don't know exactly how they work.
Yeah, I have no knowledge of that as well. I mean, that's the thing, I mean, they have to, if they included DMR, ProVoice, and NextEdge. Those radios would be a lot more money. They'd probably be, take for instance the SDS 100 and 200. You're going to be kissing probably about $1,000, and that's going to be, and that'll be a huger outcry than people complaining about why aren't all the formats in there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why when you do the updates for your Uniden radios, you have to provide your electronic serial number, which one of the questions that come up is because it is tied on a per radio basis. So if you buy it for this radio, and then you sell that radio and you get this one, you can't transfer your license from that radio to this radio
because it's registered to that electronic serial number.
Exactly.
I mean, that's something that, definitely, I mean, it would be awesome to do, but the thing is, that's another license key. It's another, that Motorola has to show.
Yeah.
Not Motorola, but Uniden.
Uniden, yeah. So they're trying to keep the price down for the people who don't need that. And so somebody like me who probably would want it, I pay the extra money. I know that going in.
Yeah. I mean, for someone that's, take, for instance, if you don't have a ProVoice system near you, then you don't need to buy it.
I don't have ProVoice, so I would never buy it. Now, we do have NXDN, we do have DMR, so I would buy those, but I don't have it. Nothing I listen to uses ProVoice, so there's no reason for me to pay for it.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, you're saving money there. So let's jump to the next slide here. So NXDN, which is and I joined up with ICOM and Kenwood. It's using very narrow bandwidths to allow efficiency on the spectrum. It can be trunked or a conventional signal channel. Contains radio names in the data stream and can be read on the scanner's display.
That's cool.
I haven't dabbled in this because I don't have too many of these systems near me. Tell us about that.
All right. So on an NXDN system, the alias or the name of the radio is transmitted along with the data stream. So there's a local NXDN system out here, and there's a bunch of aggregate haulers and school buses and a refuse company. And on the school buses, it'll say bus 7 and bus 14 and dispatcher. And it comes right on the screen of the radio. It'll say bus 17, bus 24, right on the radio. It really is. And you don't have to figure out. Now, you can do something like that with P25 and DMR, but you'd have to figure out what radio ID is. So radio number 12845 is the dispatcher, and now you have to program that into your scanner. On the NXDN system, it goes along with the data, and it displays right on the radio. So you can look at it and say, oh, that's bus 25. It makes it that much easier to identify who the users of the system are. So I was able to map out this local NXDN system really easy with that.
Yeah, and welcome aboard, Dale. I just saw him check in.
Hey, Dale, how are you?
But yeah, that is super cool. I mean, just being able, I kind of want while you're sitting there in your den or wherever your listening spot is, just to be able to look at the screen at that point. Who's talking now? Literally, I mean, you know what talk group it is, but you also know who is actually keying the mic right now. Yeah,
and that part is really cool. So that. I like that in NXDN. When I first saw that, I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! I wish they all did that."
Yeah, me too. I mean, that would be so cool to be able to do that. And yet again, these are upgrades on the same radios that we mentioned in the earlier slide. Yep. The 325P2, the 996P2, the 436, the 536, SDS 100 and 200. Unfortunately, the Home Patrol 2 can't be upgraded. If they ever do a Home Patrol 3, hopefully it'll cover all the digital formats, because that'd be. I mean, there's a lot of people that love, and I'm one of them that love the Home Patrol 1 and 2. The way it's set up, and that would be really cool to be able to have, those other digital formats.
Absolutely, and the people love that format. So, and if you got CRX1 or 2. You can do NXDN with the current firmware. You cannot get NXDN on the older Whistler scanners, and that legacy upgrade that Whistler sells for some of the Radio Shack and JRE scanners will not work for NXDN, only DMR.
Yeah, so it's it's really interesting to be able to see that on the display. Will it work the same way on TRX1 and 2? Have you tried it on those radios?
Not with NXDN. Are you talking about the name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I have not. I've only done NXDN on the Uniden scanners. I haven't done it on my Whistlers.
Yeah, so that's something that I got to find a NXDN system to be able to see that. I should definitely do that at some point this week. Program a system in there just to be able to see it do it. And that's totally cool. So let's continue on with the slideshow. Here we go, ProVoice, and then you see the MBTA in Boston. We put in the symbol. The first ProVoice systems I monitored. I was a part of a group. It was basically Rich Barnett and I. The whole reason Paul Obitz, was being pestered by Rich because he loves listening to the MBTA. And when they switched from a UHF conventional analog system to a digital trunking system, which ProVoice is, he was up in arms. He couldn't hear them anymore. So I think, he pestered, them. And then what Uniden was able to come up with a firmware update. So I ended up beta testing it. And sure enough, we were able to hear the MBTA, and that was the cat's meow for Rich. I mean, he was all excited. I remember beta testing it on a 536, and I was amazed that I could hear the system at Holliston, which is west of Boston. This is by the junction. If you're familiar with the highway structure in Massachusetts, Holliston is by the junction of the Mass Pike I-90 and 495. So it's pretty far west. And then I was also able to hear their system in Attleboro, Massachusetts, where I used to live. And that's even further out from Boston. And I was just amazed by that because, it was the system that, you were pretty much in my neck of the woods when I lived in Attleboro was really the fringe of the system. That was really pushing that system as far as it could go. So as you mentioned, it was originally created and sold by GE. Is that right?
Yeah, it was part of the GE EDAX trunking, and basically uses the standard EDAX trunking protocol, but instead of analog voice, it's digital voice.
You remember with the analog portion of the EDAC, it would do, at least with the Worcester system, it would do that beeping sound, or Worcester, as you call it.
Worcester, yeah. And some of the older systems had beep, 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 and some of them had the GE jingle. We bring good things to life. The jingle,
really,
right after the end of the conversation, and it was. I don't know if it was an anti-scanner tone or if it was just a rescan tone. Told the receiver, okay, it's time to go back to the control channel. But we called them the anti-scanner tones because at that time there weren't trunk tracking scanners. They were, you could only monitor it on a standard scanner and then have to hit the scan button right away. There was a couple places that made little boards that you would install on the scanner that would cause the scanner to ignore those beeps because they're, GE, we bring things to annoy you to life beeps. And these little boards you put in the radio and it would detect that tone and automatically force the scanner to scan. And then eventually when they came out with trunk tracking scanners that were capable of doing EDAX, it wasn't an issue anymore.
So let me understand this correctly. So that jingle that you heard wasn't heard by the end user. It was basically heard by the scanner user. Is that right?
Right.
Now that must have annoyed the bejesus out of people.
This was back in the Pro 2004 days. And when they first put the EDAX system in Illinois, and I was listening to it with the 2004, and then at the end you'd hear the beep, 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 beep on there for like 2 or 3 seconds, and it was very annoying, and it caused a lot of people to not listen to the system. And then when these boards became available, you put them in the scanner, and then it would ignore it and tell it to rescan, and it worked really well.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we also have, the same thing with those Uniden radios. The ProVoice upgrades can be added to the same family of Uniden radios. The BCD 325, 996P2, 436, 536, and of course the SDS 100 and 200. And then of course the Home Patrol 2, yet again on the list, but it's not able to be upgraded. No Whistler, GRE, or Radio Shack has ever supported Phase 2. So Uniden, this is like an exclusive, ProVoice, but this is one of the few formats that only Uniden supports.
That's right. Yeah, and that is a Uniden exclusive. So if you gotta listen to a ProVoice, you gotta get a Uniden. Right.
All right, so let's continue on here. I lost my mouse again. There we go. That's what happens. Well, I have it. I know where the mouse is. I just lost it on one of the screens. I'm actually using a different setup today. So I actually have 3 screens versus the 2 screens. So, I keep losing it on the 3rd screen, which I'm not using. And you have.
I do the same thing with all these screens here. I got one mouse and I have no idea where the cursor is.
Looking at the comments, a lot of people are asking about these other formats. Here they are. Yeah. We didn't leave them out. Digital modes that are not currently supported by any scanner from Uniden or Whistler include that British. This is a British system. This MPT 1327. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very commonly used in Britain. It's a European standard. I don't know if it's mostly from the UK, but it's very popular in Europe and the EU especially. And there are some MPT 1327 systems out there. I think there's one up in northern Wisconsin, and and here and there's a few of them, but there's not a lot here in the US.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, that an uncommon system being put over here.
It's just a matter of somebody sold it to them, and they bought it.
They bought it. And OpenSky, and then Tetra. What's with Tetra? It's
another international protocol used in a lot of other countries. It's just not that common here in the U.S. There's a couple of them. I think O'Hare Airport is in the process of putting in a Tetra system for whatever reason. I don't know. Somebody, somebody bought it for whatever reason. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. Here, buy the system. It's it's an oddball system. I mean, I'm sure it's got to be hard to come by the radios.
Yeah, because now you're locked into one vendor. So
yeah, you're completely locked into one vendor. So if you want to buy the radios, you're going to buy it from the same, from the vendors that sell Tetra, and that's limits your options. D-Star and System Fusion. What is the deal with these two? They're strictly ham radio?
Yeah, those are strictly ham radio. D-Star is sold by ICOM, and System Fusion is sold by Yaesu. I think Yaesu. Yeah, I think it's Yaesu. And they're just different digital formats. D-Star got really popular real quick for a while, and then it's kind of floated away. And same thing with Fusion. It's kind of popular in some areas. And there's a few other digital modes. I mean, there's FT8 and there's a few other digital modes that, that hams are playing with. But over these days, almost all the digital stuff being done by hams is DMR these days.
Yeah. And I mean, and yet again, going to those DMR radios are a lot more affordable. And I know Anytone is one of the companies out there that a base mobile and a portable, and it's very affordable. It's not something that's ridiculous. That's out of out of price range.
Yeah, I've got a portable that does DMR that I paid about $180 for, and I got a mobile that I paid about the same price, and they both do DMR, and they work great.
Yeah, it looks like you're right about Fusion. Yaesu. Yeah. Yaesu product right there. Thank you, Donnie, for that. We appreciate you chiming in with that.
Yeah.
We appreciate your comments out there. Keep them coming along. Sometimes if it's relevant to the conversation, we'll display it right on the screen while we're talking about that particular topic live.
Yeah, and make sure that your picture that you have attached to your YouTube account is something that you don't mind people seeing.
Yes. Thankfully, we haven't had any inappropriate or anything weird up there. And then we'll dive into this next slide a little bit more. You're probably wondering, is there any ways to monitor these digital formats that are uncommon? So let's take a look at that slide right now. If your scanner is unable to monitor digital formats, you might be able to use a two-way radio of its type.
Yep.
which could be
so it originally the same thing happened with P25 at least Astro, when that first came out. The only way to monitor those was with a P25 or an Astro radio until the scanners came out that were able to do it. If depending on the type of radios or the type of system that you're listening to, not only would you need the radio, but you would need oftentimes a system key or some other type of specialized software key, plus the programming software. And depending on the protocol, you might need legally the authorization from the system user. So same thing with an encrypted P25 system. If you were to go out and buy a P25 radio, that radio is capable of monitoring a P25 encrypted system, but now you need the programming and the system key or software key, plus you need the encryption code and a way to load it. So if you want to do that, you would have to get authorization from the system owner or operator and get authorized to do that. Unless you are a member of the media or a tow truck driver or somebody else who they authorize to listen to their encrypted channels, it ain't going to happen. If you've got an SDR, you can use those for some digital modes. Again, that's going to be all done through software. And then modes like that are not, secure, like Fusion or D-Star, you can just go out and buy a D-Star radio or a Fusion radio. They're not that expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that's ways to be able to get around all that, to be able to do it. I mean, that's really cool. I mean, Fusion and D-Star, I remember hearing about that a lot way back when, but yeah, like you said, it's not anymore as popular. And DMR seems like ham radio loves DMR.
Yeah, I think the fact that the radios are relatively inexpensive and you can get them from a variety of vendors. And I mean, there are some ham radio operators that will only buy Motorola radios. They're just big fans of Motorola radios. And now you can get Motorola DMR radios. And you can get DMR radios from a lot of other vendors too. I mean, I've got Anytone and I've got what's the other one? TYT. So, and there's a lot of different vendors where you can get DMR radios and they can all talk to each other.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing. I mean, to be able to, be able to buy the radios from your favorite vendor. I mean, the same thing goes for the scanner community. You have a lot of people that are in the Whistler camp, and you have a lot of people that are in the Uniden camp.
Yeah,
and that's definitely the coolest thing there. To be able to get a radio that you prefer because of its manufacturer.
Yeah. And you get a wide variety of different types of radios. So you can find one at a price point and with the feature set that you like. So you can do that. And like I said, my radios, these aren't the ones I've got they're ham radios, but they're pretty decent quality and they work very well and they do what I want for a price I was willing to pay for them.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. So let's see here. It looks like we are halfway through the broadcast. So we're going to get into your questions in the second half. So post them in the comments. If you're joining us on Facebook or on YouTube tonight, post your questions and comments right now, or we're going to go through them in the second half of the show. If we don't get your question this evening, the best way to contact us is through this email address that you see on your screen. support@scannermaster.com. You can call us at 1-800-722-6637. We're open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, you can always shop Scannermaster 24/7 at scannermaster.com. So definitely check out our sponsor, which is Scannermaster. Next week's broadcast is Wednesday, August the 12th. We're interviewing Paul from the Scanner School. That'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So make sure you tune into that. If you're a fan of his podcast, you can definitely tune in and join us for an interview. We're going to ask Paul, how he got involved in the hobby. We're going to talk about his podcasts and what those are all about. So if you're not familiar with the Scanner School, you will be next week. I mean, there's only Phil. I don't know what you wrote Paul on the screen yet again.
Did I?
Yes. Oh, jeez.
Oh, that's my fault. Sorry about that, Phil.
Another Ron Burgundy moment. I read anything that's on the screen.
That's on me.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. I would have kept calling him. It's Phil, not Paul.
Yeah.
It's been a long day. We're
going to pay for that next week, aren't we?
I'm sure it'll get back to him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Phil.
Yeah. All right, Frank, and I'm Bill.
Gee whiz. I think it's right. Yeah, it's right on this screen. I'm going to leave this screen up. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the one that you wrote.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one I wrote. I mean, I'll do typos and things like that, but I try to make sure I get people's names correct. The Scanner School. Make sure you join us next week. He'll be our first guest on the Scanner Guys. Make sure you join Phil next week. Phil,
we're just so excited to have a guest. We just blurted out a name.
We would have loved to have Paul Obitz, on the show if he was still around. We would have loved. I think that would have been a fun interview. I mean, anybody that has met Paul personally, I've heard just stories. I never got to meet him, but he's quite a character. You've met him a couple of times, right, Rich?
Oh yeah, he's a blast. Really is great. It really was a great guy to talk to. It then you couldn't ask for a funnier, more engaging type person to sit down and eat dinner with. It's like we just had a great time.
Yeah, definitely. So make sure you join us next week. Phil will be on the show, and we are excited.
And maybe we can get Paul too. Not that Paul, but a different Paul.
Yes, that's for sure. Make sure you send in your stupid scanner tricks and your shack photos. You can email those over. If the email address is thescannerguys@gmail.com. Don't send support questions and things like that to there. I don't monitor the email 24/7. So if you have a pressing question, make sure you email support@scannermaster.com. It'll get answered a lot faster there. And then don't forget about my social media. I'm a rail fan. I haven't been posting as much as I'd like to, but hopefully I'll get back in the swing of things. Trainaficionado.com is the website, and you could follow, like, and subscribe to the social media there, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. It's not the icon's not there, but yeah, I have a YouTube channel as well, so you can definitely follow me on those social medias. And then we can't forget, the Scanner Master social media, Facebook and Twitter. And then for the Scanner Guys, we're all over the place: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And don't forget to check out our sponsor, which is Scanner Master. So we're going to dive into the Q&A portion of the broadcast, where you guys answer the questions. Where you guys ask the questions.
Well, sometimes they answer them too.
They answer the questions too. So, boy, let's take it away.
All right. So I'm going to go through some of the oldest ones first. So a bunch of our listeners have got their T-shirts, so we appreciate that. We got a ton of comments, so I'm not going to be able to acknowledge every single one, but for all of those who got their T-shirts, congratulations and thank you. How do we bring it over this screen so I can look at you? All righty. And Dave's got his 2 T-shirts, so we'll make sure we give him a shout out too. So, let's see here. I got to check both sides here. Yep, a lot of guys got their shirts. A lot of them. Hello. Okay, Mike's checking in from Mississauga. Hope Jonathan. He hopes that the hurricane isn't hitting you bad. Did you get nailed with the hurricane there?
No, not really. I'm so far in. I'm basically north of Charlotte, so I'm about 2 to 3 hours from the coast. So yeah, I didn't feel that at all. There was a lot of people that were asking about that, and I was like, hurricane. didn't feel anything of it. Usually when it goes deeper inland, yes, I'll definitely feel that. That's for sure.
Cool. Joe asks if our shirts had the preset wrinkles that we were talking about last week.
No, they didn't.
Mine look kind of smooth. The only wrinkles my shirt have are because of my folds.
Those love handles is probably your wife calls it.
Oh man, I've got I could probably I got love handles for an orgy, I tell you.
Oh dear.
All righty. So Don is looking for a scanner for DMR. So we talked about that. We did mention the scanners that will work for DMR. So I'm glad we got those questions answered for you already. A couple people from my Chicago area. We talked about the SDS 200E. Though the Uniden does make scanners for markets other than the North American market. And they're actually not sold by Unit in America. They are sold by other distributors in other countries. I know they had some issues with some stuff in Australia with the company that sells them out there. So again, I don't think there's a whole lot of hardware difference between them other than the power adapter. I think the difference might be firmware between them. And so Ron's got his SDS 200s that's scanning the DC area. That's cool. So it goes for 15,000 Australian US dollars. Oh boy, that's probably 1,500. Probably be more like it in there, but I'm not sure what the exchange rate for Australian dollars are these days.
Jeez, Joe. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Let me pull this up here.
I assure you, it's water. I'm just running on fumes. It's been exhausting last couple of weeks, for me, and it's just like, how many bottles are we up to now, Rich? We just finished one.
That was bottle number 3, so I'm into bottle number 4 now. So I only have 5. I only got 5 up. So
what is the? I know Poland Springs is up in the Northeast. Deer Park is here. What is your big? Is there a big water company that's equivalent to Poland Springs and Deer Park?
Nothing that I've seen out here. I live in the desert, so our water's imported. I think it's probably imported from Utah, but I just buy the store brand out here, or sometimes.
You know what we really need to do, I think,
what's that?
Is since Scanner Master is basically in the backyard of Poland Springs, we need to get Poland Springs on board for the water bottle count, and then you make sure product placement, you face that out towards the camera so they can see Poland Springs.
Yeah.
Bring them on.
Be like Linus Tech Tips. We'll get water bottles with our name emblazoned on them and sell them in his swag.
Yes.
So, Carmen asks how much P25 is in the EU. That's a great question, Carmen. And if I knew, I would tell you. Again, I think a lot of their stuff is 13 is the MPT and Tetra. So I'm not sure how much P25 is used in the EU. It was obviously developed here in the States, and it's very popular in the U.S. and Canada. And I'm sure there's some other use for it internationally, but I don't know how much is done in the EU. Down in New Zealand, and I know they use P25 in Australia and New Zealand, but Don says in New Zealand, most of their P25 is encrypted. So, so unfortunately, that's kind of a popular thing these days. And Carmen was also wondering about the EU or Tetra. And let's see here. So P25 is not always encrypted here in the U.S., obviously, but it might be in other areas where they use more encryption than they do here. So let's see here. Will, you're late. Oh man, yeah, you got to set your alarm.
I saw that when he posted it. Back in what is it?
Well, it's at 5:13 my time, so it's what 8:13 your time.
Yeah, he hasn't posted the comment, the inside joke that we both get.
No, not yet, but I'm sure he will.
I wasn't even there, and I know about the story.
So apparently, our friends in New York saying that the storm is past there. That's good. And apparently, it went across Virginia with very few problems there. So hopefully, it was a big non-event for those of you on the East Coast. We don't get hurricanes here. We get haboobs.
I was just going to say that. You taught me that.
Haboob, yes. A fancy name for a dust storm. All righty. So we had a comment. If you're using Chrome, you might be better off trying Firefox or Safari or something like that. So if you're having issues with the stream with Chrome, try a different browser and see if that works better.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I didn't miss a beat here. And my phone was going off. My dad said it went out for a second. He was able to refresh it, and he was back in business. So I'm not too sure what happened there. It's probably some sort of glitch for some people, you said, but very interesting.
Well, Sean said that Down Detector says that there were some internet service disruptions all across the country. So it's not us, it's them.
Yeah. I'm so happy it's somebody else, not us. I mean, this is, I mean, before it was, crazy issues. I mean, now it's not us, we promise.
Yeah, the new software that we're using works much better. So
yeah,
that's good. All righty. So Jim brings up a very good suggestion. If you're not sure what digital mode that your agency is using, look at the license and check the emission designator. And on Radio Reference, there's a page with a chart with all the different emission designators. And if you can't find that, just Google the emission designator, and there'll be a website to tell you what that is. So it'll be something like 11KF3ED something or another. It's a thing that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you just look at it. But if you Google that emission designator or look on that chart, it'll tell you it's P25 phase 1, P25 phase 2, or DMR, NXDN, et cetera, et cetera. So, and let's see here. Different systems use different bandwidths, different digital modes. So, and the bandwidth is the spacing in between channels. We talked about that earlier. NXDN, super narrow. You can fit more channels within that same amount of spectrum as a voice channel or an analog channel or a P25 channel. So there's just different ways of increasing the efficiency. NXDN just makes the channels very narrow. P25 phase 2 makes it 2 talk paths per channel. Let's see here. Ray actually comes up with a great idea here. Spectrum efficiency can be, if you take a look at Ethernet, same kind of thing. It's how much stuff you can squeeze through a single pipe or a single pipe. So you have a small pipe that can carry a lot of water. You make a bigger pipe, you can carry a lot more stuff, or you make the water smaller to fit more water through the pipe. Let's see here. John's got some ProVoice in his area. So let's see here. Oh, yeah, Joe's got a great suggestion, the Jesus method for programming. We were talking earlier about the guy who spent all weekend doing his programming on his WS1040, and the first time he turned it on to test it, it all got erased because of the heap error. So he says, save everything and then make a backup and store it elsewhere. So the thing is, when you're saving stuff that you're working on, do it like you vote in Chicago, early and often. Let's see here. What else do we got? P16. Okay, so Alicia asks, what's P16? We spoke about that earlier. Basically, it's the app code name for the Motorola trunking system protocol that predated the P25. And there's some other stuff. There's a bunch of the P in P25 and P16 stands for project. So they came up with a project, and it was a set of specifications for communications protocols. And P16 protocol had this, and this, and you're allowed to do this. You have to do that, and that if you comply with all those, it's P16. If you comply with all these, it's P25. And I'm sure there's other P systems coming down the road. Okay. Yeah, so P16 could be Motorola, like Joe said, P16 could be Motorola Type 1, Type 2, or EDAX. Basically, it's a set of specifications, and if you meet those specifications, you follow the program. Let's see here. And there's also some conventional specifications for P16 as well. So we already spoke about VSLEP. Joe remembers fleet maps. Nick brings up a good point. What would Bill Cheek think about scanners today? That's a great question, Bill or Nick. Those who don't know who Bill Cheek is, he was a very interesting character, as we would say, to be polite. But he was a very intelligent, very smart guy who was a master of modifying scanners to make them better. And he got in some legal issues, but towards the end, he passed away a few years back. But he was a very, very interesting guy, and he came up with a lot of the mods that we take for granted now. So, Joe is telling us about the Motorola X2 was a kind of a precursor to Phase 2. Motorola put together a protocol to use TDMA or 2 time slots, and that particular protocol was modified into what we now know as Phase 2. So most scanners should be able to pick up X2 if they're capable of doing Phase 2, but I don't think there's any X2 that's still out there. Cleveland was VSLEP, yep, and I think it was the other one that I know of was Memphis. In fact, I even went down to Memphis to try to decode that once.
I'd never been to Memphis. How did you like the city?
It's a neat town. There's a lot of neat stuff to do. I mean, if you're an Elvis fan, you got to go to Memphis. And if you're a barbecue, I was there a couple years ago with Rich, and one of the things we did is we found a couple good barbecue places and made barbecue 2 nights in a row. It was great.
Yeah, I want to go there. And there's a really cool railroad bridge that I've seen on TV. Yep. That's definitely one that I want to check out as well. That's in Memphis.
Yeah, it's. I've been there a few times. Went there with the wife. She's a huge Elvis fan, you know, and so we did the Graceland tour. I've actually done that 3 times.
You've done it 3 times?
Yeah, and you know what? I've enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Did you do it with Rich?
No.
I was just asking. I want to see.
Not that time. No, I've been to Memphis many times, but took my wife down there twice and went down there with some friends. So.
I can see the 2 of you. Let's go to Graceland.
No, but you know what? If you're an aviation fan, he's got a couple of his airplanes. He's got his Convair and his Gulfstream parked there, so you can go through his airplanes, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. And you said it's really gaudy, is what you said?
It's as gaudy and kitschy as you can imagine, and so over the top. But it's, I tell you what, I had the time of my life. We spent 3 days there the first time, and there was still stuff to see. So it was definitely worth the. It's definitely worth. You got the mansion over here, and then across the street is the museum and the gift shop and the airplanes. And it's just like, say, they take you in a bus across the street to the mansion. You go through the tour of the mansion, and then there's the studio in the back, and then there's the yard and where his grave is, and I think his dad's buried there as well. And they've got the eternal flame, and then you get back on the bus, they drive you across the street again, and then you've got the you got the museum, the cars, his airplanes, and then you could buy every Elvis souvenir in the world, and like I say, it's great.
Yeah,
and plus I got all the frequencies that they were using at the time.
Why? Did they have a lot of radios when you were there?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I found about 4 or 5 channels that they're using, 2 repeaters and a couple simplex channels.
Wow.
So yeah, there was a lot of activity out there.
Quite an
I'm sure all that's DMR these days, but it's been years since I've been there.
Oh, maybe we need to do a road trip to Graceland.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. All right, so our buddy Railfan51 has an XDS 2500 that he uses for scanning, which seems to work pretty well. Again, we talked about that earlier. Getting the programming software and the system keys to do trunking is questionable legality and such. So just be careful if you're going to do anything like that. We talked about OpenSky or OpenCry or whatever you want to call it.
OpenCry. I haven't heard that one.
Pennsylvania had microcells for OpenSky. They were good for about a mile to a coverage, which means you probably need thousands of towers to cover the entire state. So that was just a disaster from the start, the Pennsylvania system. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, Oakland County, Michigan used OpenSky. They have been for many years. They are in the process of converting that to P25. I don't know about the encryption status of that, but the Oakland County system, Michigan, just near Detroit, is being converted over to the state P25 system. And the OpenSky technology had 2 or 4 slot TDMA. So phase 2 P25 is 2 slot TDMA. It means there's 2 time slots. With OpenSky, you can get up to 4, which means you can get 4 voice paths on each frequency, which makes it even that much more efficient. Wow. If only it worked.
Yes.
So, yeah, let's see here. Okay, so Will's telling us that the Naperville and Aurora system is going to P25, and it's likely going to be encrypted full time, unfortunately. So that's another OpenSky system out of the picture, but they're going encryption, so that doesn't help us. Let's see here, because it stinks. Yep. Yeah, Railfan51 is the guy that did the OpenCry. So,
credit to him.
Credit to you for that one. So, we were talking earlier about single channel trunking systems. EDX single channel system was called SCAT, single channel autonomous trunking. So, thank you, Joe, for that. And see, FedEx operations have converted from Motorola trunking to DMR encrypted. That stinks. Let's see here. Ron's got D-Star radios from, I guess Kenwood sold D-Star radios as well. I guess that would make sense if they got together on NXDN. Why wouldn't they get together on D-Star, Kenwood and ICOM? Joe got his small SDS 100 battery yesterday. That's great. Congratulations. And we spoke about this a little earlier. The reason that Uniden charges you for the DMR, ProVoice, and NXDN updates is because they pay a license fee for each radio that they sell that has those modes in it. And so that has to be, and that's done on a per radio basis. So the fact that they have they sold you a radio means they have to pay DSVI or DVSI, who owns the licenses, X amount of dollars per radio. So that's why you have to give your electronic serial number, and that update only works for that particular radio. So if I have a 325 and I sell it and I buy a 436, I would have to buy the DMR mode separately for my new radio. I can't transfer from my old radio to my new one. There's no way to delete it from the old radio. So when I sell my 325 that has DMR or NXDN in it, I sell it with that DMR NXDN protocol. And if I sell it to you, now you've got that radio with DMR on it, and I cannot take that same key and apply it to my other radio. It just, unfortunately, doesn't work like that. Whistler doesn't pay a licensing fee for the trunking protocol, so they don't have to charge for it, or their license fees are much less, and they're able to eat the charge. So, yeah, if you have a Uniden radio, it does cost extra, but it tracks it properly. If you have a Whistler radio, It's a little bit cheaper to get it, but it won't track the trunking system properly. DMR and NXDN like scanning. Yeah, so yeah, exactly that. So on Whistler, you're basically scanning a trunking system in conventional mode. So it just doesn't work as well on a Whistler radio for DMR and NXDN than it does on a Uniden radio.
Is this statement true?
The rich get richer? I don't know. I'm not getting any richer. But I'm just kind of going along. So yeah, it isn't a money grab. It's a cost benefit thing. Mm-hmm. You know, if you want better trunk tracking on DMR and NXDN, you're going to pay a little extra for it and get it through Uniden. If you want to save yourself some money, and especially if they're using DMR or NXDN in conventional non-trucking modes, you can save some money and get a TRX. It's it's up to you. You have to weigh it. And it is on a per radio basis. And that's why they ask for your electronic serial number, because that way the code is generated based on the electronic serial number of the radio, and it's a one-time code. So once you buy that code, it'll work on that radio forever. If you send your radio into Uniden to get repaired, make sure you put a note on there that it has DMR or NXDN on it, so that in case they have to either replace the radio or the main board, they will either reinstall it, or you can get the code to reinstall it because you've already paid for it.
Yeah.
If they give you a new radio with a different serial number, make sure they know that you have those upgrades so they can give you that mode on your new radio. So Chris asks, when you get the upgrade for DMR and NXDN, where does the software get uploaded in the part of the scanner? So it's in the firmware, and it's already in the radio, especially if you have the latest firmware. What you buy is a one-time code that you can enter in on the keyboard of the radio, and when you enter the proper code for your radio, it will unlock the NXDN or the ProVoice. So it's already in the radio. You just have to unlock it. So they can sell you that as long as it's locked and not have to pay for it. But then they sell you the key to unlock it, and then it'll work on your radio. And then Uniden has to pay the DVSI X amount of dollars for that unlock code. So, and it's not affected by firmware update. So you have to do the firmware update first. And then after you do that, if you do additional firmware updates, it's not going to go away. If you reprogram the radio, it won't go away. If you take the batteries out of the radio, it won't go away. The only way you can take it out of the radio is if you have to replace the main board. And if that's the case, Uniden will make sure that you get the modes that you've paid for. And they can tell if you paid for it. They can look it up on the computer. Even if you bought it through us. So if you bought the DMR through us, we installed it for you. You send your radio in a year from now for warranty work or non-warranty work from Uniden, and they have to replace the radio because it's beyond repair. Make sure they know that you have the update so they can get you a radio with it, or get the electronic serial number to match what it was originally, so that you can reinstall your update. And there's nothing you can do to uninstall the DMR update. Let's see here. Dale's finally showed up. Thank you, Dale. Glad you made it. Let's see here. Let's see here. Installers, updates, keys are, yeah. So again, there were some more questions about how come you can't transfer your upgrade keys when you get the new radio. We talked about that. Unfortunately, you just can't do it. It's just not going to work. And there's nothing much you can do about it, unfortunately. And like Ron says, it's locked to the ESN of that scanner. And Joe is right. There's no way to ensure that you've disabled it on the old radio. And the way the licensing structure is handled with the company that owns the protocol, when you sell the radio, that's a one-time purchase. You can't transfer it from radio to radio. Okay, so the NXDN system, the name doesn't, it's not the username, it's the radio name. So the radio name, okay, so it's on the radio. When you when you're watching an NXDN system, listening to an NXDN system, you look at the screen of the radio, the name of the radio will show up on the screen. So it'll say truck 5 or truck 2. It has no idea that you're Jonathan or Rich, because anybody could be using that radio, but it knows that it's truck number 5. Now, if it's the truck that Bill drives every day, then it might say Bill. But what happens when Jim borrows Bill's truck? It'll still say Bill. Let's see So like I say, Joe was absolutely correct on his explanation of how those keys work. If you want to give me a call tomorrow, Royal Fan, I'll be glad to explain it to you. But he's absolutely right. That's exactly how it works. You do need to do the firmware updates first before you do the mode updates. So if you're going to buy DMR or NXDN or ProVoice, make sure you have the latest firmware for your radio. So for D-Star and C4FM, there are no keys for scanners for those modes. So your scanner will not do D-Star even if there's no keys to buy, because the radio just is not capable of doing that. And let's see here. To get the code. Yeah. Now, you can get the code for unlocking these DMR and NXDN modes and ProVoice. You can buy them from us or get them directly through Uniden, whichever is easier for you. And let's see here. Tetra is not supported yet on scanners. Likely never will be, because and Joe thinks that it's probably encrypted all the time. And I trust Joe. He's usually right on these things. I don't know that for sure, but he's usually right on these things, so I will take his word for it on that. Tetra is mostly in Europe. Very little Tetras in the U.S., but like I say, they're building a system out at O'Hare Airport in Chicago, so it's occasionally found out here. We were talking earlier about that jingle that they used to have on the trunking systems, on the EDAC systems. Apparently, the FCC said, can't do that. You're transmitting music on a public safety frequency. Can't do that. So that's why they went to beeps. They had a similar issue with the space shuttle. A lot of the space shuttle activities done on the ham channels, not the official stuff, the chit chat, and a lot of astronauts would use ham radio to talk to people on the ground, and they would rebroadcast some of the communications from the space shuttle, between ground and space shuttle, and some ham repeaters. And there was a question of whether or not that was legal, because they would use music to wake up the space shuttle crew. And that would go out over the ham radio channels, which it's illegal to transmit music across the ham radio channels. So if I recall correctly, they got some sort of legal dispensation to allow that. It's the practical thing. Let's see here. Ron's got a D74, which is one of those D-Star radios. Remember, when you buy a D-Star or a Fusion radio, they will also be able to work on analog. So same thing when you buy a digital scanner, they also work on analog. That's a question we get all the time. So when you buy a digital scanner, they also work on analog channels. Chris asked the difference between Skywarn and WeatherNets in ham radio. So Skywarn is an official NOAA program, and they have official notification protocols with NOAA. WeatherNets are typically, they may or may not be Skywarn related. My radio club that I'm involved with here has a WeatherNet when there's severe weather, and we're not officially connected with Skywarn or the Weather Service, but we do keep track of some of these weather events. But like I say, Skywarn is an official program. WeatherNets may or may not be related to Skywarn. Let's see here. Yaesu. There's a relationship between Yaesu and Motorola. I think Motorola bought the Vertex line of Yaesu. I don't know if they own the rest of Yaesu, but I know they bought the Vertex radio line from Yaesu, and that did include some amateur radio stuff as well as some commercial stuff. I don't know if Motorola owns the rest of Yaesu or just the Vertex line. And let's see here. And Vertex, and then there was also Standard Radio. And Standard and Vertex merged, become Vertex Standard, and then the commercial line and government line was bought by Motorola. And again, I don't know if the ham radio line is owned by Motorola or not. There were some Standard had some pretty good radios. I had a couple Standard ham radios back in the day, and they were really great. Let's see here. Carmen's dad had a Standard Horizon VHF Marine radio. Those were pretty popular back in the day. Let's see. Horizon was the Marine version of Standard, and then Vertex purchased Standard. Okay, so that's how that worked out. And then Chris asks, can any of the ham radio DMR radios monitor a trunking system on the commercial frequencies? They might. If they have the frequency coverage and if they have the trunking protocol in it, they might. Remember that if it's a ham radio, you're not allowed to use that to transmit on any of the non-ham frequencies, so don't try that. Whether or not it can be programmed to monitor a trunking system, it depends on the radio. You can monitor on it, yeah, but you may or may not be able to trunk track it. Yeah, Phil. It's Phil next week, not Paul. Sorry about that. That was me. Yeah. The coding on depends on the format and ham radio. So, yeah, again, Joe agrees it may or may not be possible to transmit directly to monitor trunking systems properly with the ham radio that is DMR. Yep. So you fixed it. All right. Now, did you spell his last name right?
That looks about right.
I originally had it Burger when I first typed it, and I caught that error myself. I just didn't catch the first name, so
it's okay.
All righty. Let's see, electronic logbooks. They can do that in the radios. Apparently, that's something in the trucking business. So let's see here. On the SDS 200, while custom search, some signals are showing up as XPT, some are RAN 2 and RAN 3. So RAN 2 and RAN 3 are RAN codes are NXDN codes that are like color codes or NAC codes on a P25, color codes on a DMR system, or a PL on in a conventional channel. If you program an NXDN system and do not put a RAN code, you'll hear everything on the channel. If you put in a RAN code, you'll only hear NXDN signals that match that RAN code as well. Let's see here. So Kevin is in Fond du Lac County, Wisconsin, and the sheriff up there has an analog channel and a P25 channel. But it usually stops on the analog on priority. So he has them both programmed as priority. Why is it doing that? Well, if you're sure they're using that P25 channel, I don't know why it does that. Maybe it picks up the analog quicker. Try taking the priority off the analog channel for a little bit and make sure the priority channel is working at all on the P25 channel. If you have a NAC code program there, try taking the NAC code out because it might not be correct. There's a couple of suggestions on that. Let's see here. So John has got a 996 and a 325, and he has trouble receiving the P25 system in Newark. He's in Bergen County, Newark, New Jersey. So I'm not sure why, John, you're having those issues. Number one, check the radio reference database. Make sure they're not encrypted. And if they're encrypted, you're not going to hear anything at all. If they are not encrypted, you should be able to hear it as well, as long as you have the system programmed properly. If it's a trunking system, make sure that you have the trunking system type set at P25 instead of something else like Motorola or something. Make sure that you have all the control channels programmed in the scanner. You don't need the voice channels, but you do need the control channels. All right, so yeah, it is romper room time, and I do have my magic mirror. I see Kevin, I see Alicia, I see David. Yeah, we talked about that earlier too, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, we certainly did. We did
remember the context.
What was that?
I don't remember the context while we were.
I think we talked about it off air.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Not too sure if we talked about it on air.
No, but we talked about something. I just don't remember what the context was.
I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. So, somebody replaced your water with vodka. Maybe they did, and you didn't notice. So, does your water taste funny today?
No. It's just I'm just a little tired tonight. Just to be honest with you.
Well, we'll make sure we keep you up late tonight. So
that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. If Jonathan falls asleep, somebody let us know, and I'll call his wife, tell him, come on, wake you up.
Yeah. We'll just keep streaming because I'm at the central control.
Yeah, you're in control. We'll be sitting here listening to you snore all night.
I'll make sure I mute the mic.
All right. So we were talking earlier about somebody said that the SDS was 15,000 Australian dollars. I think he probably meant 1,500. He probably just typed too many. And then Ron says that the exchange rate is about 1.5 to 1. So that makes that still about $1,000, $900 US, which is, it's more than what we're paying for it, but it's not nearly as bad as it could be. A lot of stuff like that costs more in other countries than it does here in the U.S. and Canada. Well, even in Canada, the SDS we sell the SDS for the same price, but in U.S. dollars. But in Canadian dollars, these days, $700 is probably close to $1,000 Canadian, depending on today's exchange rate. And other stuff that I've bought in Canada typically is more, even considering the exchange rate. So I bought a battery for my old videotape recorder that I used to have, and I needed a new battery. The battery had crapped out on me, and I went to a camera shop and I found one, and it cost me about $300 Canadian for this battery, which I can get in the US for like 75. And even with the exchange rate at the time, it was still about $180, almost $200 American versus like 75 in the US. So some things are cheaper. Okay, so Dale says his grandson is upset he didn't get a kitty-sized T-shirt for him. So I'll give you a little hint there, Dale. Wash it in hot water, and your 3XL will now become a extra small.
Oh, dear. I hope not.
I hope not either. I have washed this shirt twice, and it has not shrunk. I've expanded a little bit, but the shirt hasn't shrunk.
What did you decide on for the pizza? I mean,
Home Run Inn.
Okay,
we can finally get sausage Home Run Inn pizzas. There's one grocery store in the Phoenix area that has sausage pizza, and it's Home Run Inn Pizza, which from Chicago, that's like the big place out in Chicago. It's the only place where I can get sausage pizza frozen in the Phoenix area. Is that, and the only reason they carry it is because I asked them to.
You have pull at the local supermarket.
I do. The manager of the store, so they recognize us, they know us, and they chat us up all the time. And I tell them I want sausage pizza. I don't care what brand it is. And
isn't there a lot of people in your area originally from?
Yeah. So half of Phoenix is from Chicago. And I don't know why. And sausage pizza is huge in Chicago. And last time I was there,
I would think that you wouldn't be the only one looking for that.
I don't know what it is. Well, it's a California influence. You can go there and get a million types of California pizzas, which is pineapple and bacon and all that crap, and you can't get a decent sausage pizza, in there. But, last time I was in Chicago, I went to the grocery store next to the kid's house, and there was like 75 different types of sausage pizzas. I was thinking about, buying them in a couple of gallons of dry ice and sending them back to Phoenix, but
Well, that's cool. Have you noticed that people have been buying it other than you?
Yeah. He says he's been selling a lot of them.
So clearly, you getting a little bit of a cut of that?
Oh, I wish I were. Yeah, give me a buck of box. Yeah. So, oh yeah, good thing here. Are you aware now that you can take your ham radio test online?
No, I wasn't aware of that. I'll have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess apparently everybody wants me to be a ham.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you've got a DMR radio, we can start talking DMR.
Yeah. Oh, it's not behind me. It's over on the other side of the room now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do.
At least you didn't lose it like you'd lost your SDS 100.
Oh, I know where that. I couldn't get off the stand, but it's right here.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, boy, the look of panic on your face that time.
Oh, that night, I actually, I left the studio. I mean, I was so panicked.
So in 1967,
yes, there it is.
We can't be a scanner, guys, without Will talking about that. So,
and I found an error here.
An error here. So, so Mike says the last time he checked on the Australian radio reference page, most of the law enforcement stuff in Australia is encrypted. Fire and EMS pairs be in the clear, which is reasonable. I can understand that. So, all right. Joe asks what type of microphones we're using. I'm using the Blue Jedi Blue mic, and you've got a really good mic.
Yeah, the RE20. This is the professional grade that you would see in any radio studio almost across the country. It's an RE20. It's not, I bought it way back when from B&H Photo and Video in New York City. And I love this mic. I mean, I've always wanted one of these, and I have one here in the studio. And anytime that I'm able to use it, I'm using it.
Yeah, it sounds great. I've been using this now. I used to have an iMac. It had a built-in webcam and microphone. And then when I went to the Mac Mini, I had to buy a webcam and a microphone. So off to Fry's or Best Buy or wherever it was I went, and I got it. It works great.
Yeah, it certainly does.
As long as I have the gain turned up.
Yep.
All righty. So what are the radio dealers doing with their older analog radios? Good question. I don't know. They might sell on the secondary market. A lot of times the wholesale, if they take trade-ins and they have all these old radios, they'll wholesale them out and they'll end up in different markets, in Mexico or Central America or someplace else. They'll resell them out there. So there's always a market for used radios. So sometimes they'll sell them to hams or put them up on eBay.
Yeah, I mean, ham radio people would still definitely use it. I mean, if they're using analog exclusively. Yeah,
absolutely. So Joe's saying that as far as he knows, all the X2 systems have been converted to P25 Phase 2. So that's probably exactly what's happened. So that X2 we were talking about that earlier is the kind of like the precursor to Phase 2 is Motorola's initial way of going to TDMA on some of their trunking systems, and now they've upgraded those to Phase 2. That's basically a firmware update for them. So the frequency on the front of the Scanner Guys t-shirt is the old Buffalo channel. They're on UHF now. Was it 154.19? The reason, I couldn't remember what frequency. That's also the dispatch channel for Phoenix Fire out here. And in the Chicago area, that used to be the frequency that my hometown used when I got my first scanner back in the 60s. And then, of course, everybody and their brother was on that same channel. And then eventually they moved off to different channels. So that's I think that's the reason we took that. They use that in your area?
I'm not sure. Mostly everything in my area is on trunking, so it's 800 or 700 megahertz.
Well, and back in Illinois, downstate Illinois or western central Illinois, almost everybody was on 154.19 for many, many years. And then there's still a lot of places that still use it out there. So So somebody asks, would you rather have one SDS 200 or two 996s? Well, it depends. If you have simulcast in your area, I'd go with the SDS 100 or SDS 200. If you don't have simulcast, I'd probably take a pair of 996s.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. It's dependent on the usage. For me, probably. I only have one SDS 200. I would love to have a second one, to be honest with you. But I mean, if you're in an area where it's not an issue with simulcast, I agree with Rich. Two 996p2s.
Yeah. Of course, I've got just a couple up here.
Just a couple already. It's just a few.
Just a couple back there, yeah. So Carmen asks, with the two time slots in the phase 2 systems, the audio sound pinched. To tell you the truth, I haven't noticed much difference on the county out here put in a phase type 2 system, phase 2 system out here. And the local agencies are using phase 1. So listening to both systems pretty much the same time, I got one radio on one on the other. I haven't been able to notice any difference in the audio quality between them. So, and we were talking earlier about why Whistler doesn't charge you extra. They use a tier 1 decoding method for DMR. He thinks that's correct. Again, he's usually correct on these things, so I will trust his judgment on that. Dave monitors a single channel NXDN system. What does he need to do to program it to see the unit numbers? So, Dave, the same way you do it on a P25 single channel, program it as a trunking system, but with a single channel. Now, I don't remember if there's an NXDN single channel programming method on the scanners, but if you have a unit in the scanner, program it as NXDN. If there's an NXDN single channel, use that mode. If not, just do an NXDN with one channel on it, and it should work just fine. Driving to Graceland, was that a movie?
I know there was a song, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember, but like I said, I had a blast out there, and it is worth is worth it. So you go to Memphis, you got to do two things. You got to go to Graceland, and you got to have barbecue.
And that's for sure.
And if you like music, the blues scene in Memphis is awesome as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to take it all in. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So let's see here. All right, so Joe thinks that the Tetra may or may not be 100% encrypted, but that's what he's heard. That could be, or it could be that they're just using a protocol that hasn't been figured out. So even if it's not encrypted, it could be like what we call pseudo encryption, like OpenSky. It's not necessarily encrypted, but the fact that you can't decode it kind of gives you, security by obscurity is what they call that. In Toronto, the Toronto Transit Commission, TTC, just switched over to a Tetra system. Systems are in communications are in the clear and digital. Okay. That I did not know because it's been a few years since I've been to Toronto. So, the Goddard Amateur Radio Club used to rebroadcast the space shuttle communications on some of their ham radio repeaters. And that's where they had the music issue. So, there's I think they got permission, or the FCC said we're not going to enforce it on those, but there was some question about the legalities of that. Let's see here. One of the issues with the cost of radios in different companies or different countries is the value-added tax. Or in the U.S. we call it sales tax. They call it the value-added tax in Canada and the U.K. and such. They have much higher taxes. In the U.S., sales tax can go anywhere from none at all, like in Delaware, to up to about 10 or 11% in places like New York City and Chicago. Out here, it's 7%, but some places are 15, 25%. So, yeah, you spend a lot more money on sales tax, and that increases, obviously, the costs of things. Frozen pizza is blasphemy. Well, yeah, it is, Carmen, but for a guy who loves pizza as much as I do, and the fact that I don't live quite at the edge of the planet, but I can see it from my backyard. It's for me, it's a half hour to the nearest grocery store, and 40 minutes to the nearest pizza restaurant. There are no pizza deliveries out here, so the only time I can eat pizza at home is to have frozen. And I mean, I can't even go to a pizza place and bring it home because by the time I get home, it's going to be cold. I even bought a pizza bag. But again, a 40-minute drive to the pizza place in the pizza bag, and that's still the pizza just doesn't stay warm by the time it gets to my house. So when we eat pizza at home, it's got to be frozen. They ask where in Chicago I'm from. So I grew up in the northwest suburbs, and I worked in the North Shore for 30-something years. So Winnetka, Wheeling, Buffalo Grove, those kind of places. And let's see here. The RE20 is a broadcast standard mic. Yeah, so that's a mic used by a lot of broadcasters, right?
Yes, yeah, it's a RE20. I love this microphone. It certainly looks awesome. I actually have it on a desk stand here, as you can see. Mm-hmm. And it's weight too, so it's not going to fall off my desk by any means. I've
knocked my mic off the table a couple times.
Oh, thank God I haven't. I would hate to mess up the grill.
Yeah. Well, me, you probably see me. I talk with my hands a lot. With my wife being deaf, I'm signing a lot, and there are times when I've been signing and knocked the mic off the desk and stuff like that, and I've knocked over bottles of water and other stuff. So I try to keep my desk as clean as possible because I'm going to knock something off. And my wife does the same thing, so I don't feel so bad when I do it. So maybe I'll accidentally knock it off the table, so she'll let me get an RE20.
Oh, jeez. I don't think she's going to go for that price. She's probably going to say you're crazy.
Probably. So, well, she knows I'm crazy anyways. 154.19, which is our frequency on the shirt. It's also used in the DC area for fire channels. Yep. It's one of the most common channels. It's one of the original VHF channels. And there are hundreds of fire departments all over the country who are using that at one point or another. So the Late Horror Show just got his SDS 200, and you're wondering if he should get the DMR programmed. So check to see if they're using DMR in the areas that you want to listen to. And if the targets you want to listen to are using DMR, then it's worth the investment. If nobody's using DMR in your area, don't waste the money. Let's see here. The Giordano's in Glendale. Oh, boy, that sounds good. I'll have to take a ride over to Glendale. We also have a couple other Chicago pizza places here. Rosati's, and there's a few other Chicago-style restaurants, again, because there's so many Chicagoans now in Phoenix. And we call this the far west side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very far west.
And let's see here. Okay, so Joe's saying thanks to Mike. It's glad to hear that there's you can have unencrypted channels on Tetra systems. So
that's good.
That's cool. And AOR does so you can get radios that will do Tetra and some of the AOR is a DV1 and DV10 will do Tetra. It won't trunk them, but it will allow you to monitor them like with almost any other digital modes. I think it also does things like D-Star and DMR and P25 and a whole bunch of digital modes, even ones that are not common in scanners. But on a communications receiver like that, will do those. Unfortunately, it won't be able to trunk track them. So, Michael lives in Ontario, and they have what's called an HST, which is harmonized sales tax, which is 13%. So, basically, what they've done is they've combined the provincial and the national sales tax into one in Canada. So that's why a lot of things are more expensive. Dave says I should have my pizzas beamed in. Yeah, I tell you what, boy, if they ever perfect that, I'll be glad to test it out for them.
I'd probably be warm too.
Yeah, and then that'd probably keep it warm. Yeah. Let's see here. Shame on me for eating frozen pizza. I'm sorry, but again, my circumstances. I hope you can forgive me. Let's see here. Rush Limbaugh, is he still around?
Yeah, I guess he's still around. Yeah, he's got a. I mean, most broadcast studios have an RE20. I mean,
yeah.
I've the couple of radio stations I worked at, I used an RE20. No, I just love it. It's a good looking microphone.
Let's see here. Jerry's in Chicago, and he's listened to some agent says it used to be on phase 1 and have switched over to phase 2. And he says the audio does sound pitched, but he's also got a WS1080, and it works very well with phase 2. So, again, I haven't really noticed a difference, but then, I don't have that good of air for that kind of stuff. I got a friend of mine back in Chicago who has got perfect pitch. And he can listen to a radio channel, tell you what PL tone they're transmitting on, which is remarkable. And every time he tried it, he was absolutely right. So I bet you he would be able to tell the difference. Vito's Pizza and Crescents. They should get in their frozen pizza business.
Yeah, you ordered a sausage pizza at Vito's.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was man, it was good. I'm jonesing for Vito's right now.
Yeah, we definitely need to make another trip out there.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see. John and Wanda lost their local simulcast county since they went to Marks. So can you pronounce that county name?
Let me look at it.
Tuscarawas? Yeah, John and Wanda Grossenball. It's like the fourth from the bottom.
Yeah, I see that.
There. How do you pronounce that county? Yeah. Tuscarawas?
I know. And that's I have no clue how to pronounce that. I mean, I won't even attempt that.
Yeah. Well, whatever that county is, they went to the state digital system there. So they used to simulcast on VHF and on the digital system. And now apparently they moved everything to the digital system so you can no longer hear the old channels. So time to get a digital scanner there, John.
Yeah.
So apparently Russ is still alive, but he has health issues. I had a buddy of mine at work that just, loved listening to him. I never could. I don't get into politics at all, so I don't listen to that nonsense. And
there's a pronunciation.
Walrus.
Walrus.
Tuscarawas.
Wow.
Okay.
That's an interesting name. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it's an Indian name.
I'm not certain. I won't even guess that either.
And that brings us to the bottom of the list.
Yeah, so certainly we've got another show next week planned for you. We want to remind you, if you have some additional scanner questions, let's say you didn't post them in the comments tonight and you want to be able to ask them, you can do it through our email address, support@scannermaster.com. If you're looking to purchase anything over the phone, you can do that as well, or ask your questions over the phone as well at 1-800-722-6637. That's 1-800-722-6637. We're open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can shop us 24/7 at scannermaster.com. And, let's not hit the menu up there. Next week's broadcast is Wednesday, August the 12th, with Phil from the Scanner School, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Scanner Guys. So you're going to be able to see us on the screen, all three of us. So that's going to be an interesting thing. Phil does an excellent podcast. He does a lot of interviews on his podcast. He does a lot of scanner-related topics. So definitely check out his podcast. I mean, there's us here that do our weekly live show right here on Facebook and YouTube. He does podcasts. So that's definitely something to check out. So if you want to get a little bit more of your scanner fix, definitely do that as well. And where's my mouse? Hold on one second. There we go. And here's another slide, the Scanner School there. So make sure you tune in. And we're always looking for your stupid scanner tricks and shack photos. Email it over to us at thescannerguys@gmail.com. And Train Aficionado, follow my social media there, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And follow, like, and subscribe to Scanner Master on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and the Scanner Guys on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. So we hope that you join us on social media as well. We would love to see you on there. Certainly, we post great stuff on all those channels, so definitely check it out. And
this is number 5. Number 5. So a couple quick follow-ups on some of these questions here. Don asks, when you say simulcast, does it mean the channels are linked or on different frequencies? So simulcast can mean two things. On simulcast, in most of the time when people are talking about simulcast, they mean a trunking system like a P25 system that has multiple towers that transmit the same communications on the same frequencies on multiple towers in an area. That's to get blanket coverage over an area. Older scanners have an issue with that and can't decode that properly, whereas the SDSs were built specifically for those type of systems, and they decode that properly. There is also what people call simulcast, which probably should be called multicast. It's where you have two separate frequencies transmitting the same thing at the same time. So there might be a 155.25 on a tower over here, and then the tower over here might be on 156.21, and they're transmitting at the same time. They're simulcasting in that they are transmitting the same thing at the same time, but they're on separate frequencies. So you might call that multicast. And then there's a third thing, which is called linking, where you might have a tower over here that's talking, and they have a channel, a radio link between tower A and tower B to carry that communications. And that's a linking thing where, yeah, I guess you can call it simulcast, but the link frequency is not meant to be heard by the masses. It's just a point-to-point transmission from here to there. And let's see here. You lost your SDS, and now you lost your mouse. Boy, you're just losing stuff all over the place.
Yeah, it's just I have 3 screens right now, so
yeah.
So I'm I'm getting used to that.
Yep. And then the other question is. Yeah, the last question was where can they view the replays?
So basically, just go to the Scanner Guys YouTube account. You'll be able to see all of our broadcasts. Sometimes it takes a little bit for it to pop up. Just give it probably the next day, and you'll see it listed as one of the videos on our YouTube channel. That's the Scanner Guys on YouTube. Just go to that account and check that out there. You can watch any of our past shows. They're all on there from whenever we've switched over to YouTube. So definitely you can binge watch these if you like. If you're a Roku subscriber, you have one of the Roku boxes, you can download the YouTube app and you can watch it on your TV. You can also watch it on Apple TV as well. And of course, you can download the app if you're an Android or a Apple user. You can download the app for YouTube on either one of those devices and watch it on that. So there's tons of ways to watch us, on any device, pretty much.
Yeah. So like I say, if you missed it tonight or you came in late, you can go and watch the replay later, and don't miss a minute.
Don't miss a minute. Don't miss a beat.
There you go. So I think that's the end of our comments, and that's the end of Romper Room. And let you wrap it up.
Yeah, so we'll catch you again next week right here. Phil from the Scanner School will be our guest. So we're looking forward to that. He'll be our first guest, and we hope to have many more guests right here on the Scanner Guys. So I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
We hope that you have a great evening. Be safe out there, and we'll catch you next week. Good night.